Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story that hits close to home for a lot of people. A battle between a homeowner and their HOA. But this isn't just any homeowner, and this isn't just any house. This is the story of Alex, a military engineer, and his fight to protect a legacy that was generations in the making. So, picture this. Alex, after years of serving his country, decides to return to his roots. He moves back into his great-grandfather's house, a beautiful old place with a sprawling garden that has been the family's pride and joy for nearly a century. This wasn't just a house, it was a living history book, filled with memories of summer barbecues, childhood games, and the quiet wisdom of his ancestors. The centerpiece of it all was a magnificent oak tree, planted by his great-grandfather the day the house was built. Alex was looking forward to a peaceful life, tending the garden and enjoying the home he loved. But peace, it turned out, was in short supply. The neighborhood had changed, a homeowners association or HOA had sprung up, and they had rules. Lots of rules. It started small. A notice about the mailbox needing a fresh coat of paint. Another about the height of the hedges. Alex, being a reasonable guy, complied. He was new to the whole HOA thing, but he wanted to be a good neighbor. He spent a weekend painting, trimming, and making sure everything was up to their standards. He figured that would be the end of it. He was wrong. The real trouble began with a letter that made his blood run cold. The HOA was demanding he remove the century-old oak tree. Their reason? Its roots were allegedly causing potential future damage to the sidewalk, and its leaves were a seasonal nuisance. They also declared that his beloved, slightly wild family garden, the one cultivated by 4 generations, was unkept and had to be replaced with a standardized HOA-approved lawn and a few sterile-looking shrubs. To Alex, this was unthinkable. That tree was more than just wood and leaves. It was a monument to his family's history. His great-grandfather had proposed to his great-grandmother under its branches. His own grandfather had taught him to read in its shade. And the garden wasn't unkept. It was a natural, pollinator-friendly ecosystem. A tapestry of flowers and plants his grandmother had lovingly chosen. Tearing it all down would be like ripping pages out of his family's story. He knew he couldn't just roll over. This was a fight for his heritage. Alex tried reasoning with the HOA board. He wrote a polite, detailed letter explaining the historical and sentimental value of the tree and garden. He even offered a compromise. He would hire an arborist to inspect the tree and a root barrier specialist to ensure the sidewalk was safe, all at his own expense. Their response? A flat, impersonal no. They weren't interested in compromise. Their decision was final, and they gave him a 30-day deadline to comply, backed by the threat of hefty daily fines and a lien on his property. That's when Alex the homeowner became Alex the military engineer. In his career, he'd solved complex logistical problems and navigated intricate regulations. He realized this wasn't a negotiation. It was a campaign. And every campaign needs a strategy. His first step was research. He spent days poring over a mountain of documents, the HOA's bylaws, covenants, city ordinances, state laws, and even the original plat maps for the neighborhood. He was looking for a weakness, a loophole, a detail they had overlooked, and then, buried deep in the county's archives, he found it. He discovered that when the HOA was formed years after his house was built, his property had a specific grandfather clause attached to it. The original deed, filed long before the HOA existed, contained a provision protecting the original landscape and structures, including all mature trees. The HOA, in their zeal for uniformity, had either completely missed this or willfully ignored it. It was the legal equivalent of finding a hidden ace up his sleeve. But Alex knew a single document might not be enough. He needed to win the hearts and minds of his neighbors. He started talking to people, not to complain, but to listen. He discovered he wasn't the only one feeling the HOA's pressure. An elderly woman was being fined because her wind chimes were too noisy. A young family was told their children's playhouse was an unapproved structure. The HOA's rigid rules were creating a community of fear, not a neighborhood of friends. So, Alex organized a casual neighborhood get-together in his unkept garden. He didn't make it about his fight. Instead, he fired up the grill, shared stories about the neighborhood's history, and introduced people who had lived on the same street for years but had never really met. He showed them the beauty of his garden, explaining how the different plants supported local wildlife. People started to see what the HOA was trying to destroy. They saw a home, a history, a community, not a list of violations. The day of the big HOA meeting arrived. The room was packed, not just with the usual board members, but with dozens of Alex's neighbors. When his case was called, the board president presented their argument with smug confidence, listing the violations and demanding compliance. Then, it was Alex's turn. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make accusations. He calmly and methodically presented his case, just like he would in a military briefing. He started by sharing the story of his family and the oak tree. He then presented the certified copy of the original deed with the grandfather clause, highlighting the relevant passage for everyone to see. He had copies for every board member and attendee. A murmur went through the crowd. He then presented a report from a certified arborist confirming the oak tree was perfectly healthy and posed no immediate threat. He also had a quote from a contractor to install a root barrier, proving he had a proactive solution. He had anticipated their every move. But he didn't stop there. He turned the floor over to his neighbors. One by one, the elderly woman with the wind chimes, the family with the playhouse, and others stood up and shared their own stories of being intimidated by the board. It became clear that this wasn't just about Alex's tree. It was about an HOA that had lost its way, valuing rigid control over the well-being of its residents. The board was stunned. Their authority was crumbling not under attack, but under the weight of simple, honest truth and community solidarity. They were cornered. Faced with undeniable legal proof and a room full of united homeowners, they had no choice. They voted to drop all actions against Alex. Not only that, they were forced to schedule a special session to review their entire rulebook and violation process. Alex had won. His family's oak tree and garden were safe. But he had achieved something even bigger. He had reminded his neighbors that an HOA is supposed to serve the community, not rule it. He turned his personal battle into a victory for everyone, transforming a group of disconnected houses back into a neighborhood. His great-grandfather would have been proud. This story is a powerful reminder to stand up for what's right, to do your homework, and to never underestimate the power of a united community. Thank you so much for watching today. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.